Here we go, here we go, here we go. All right, I'm starting the stream. It's about noon right now, my time, on the East Coast in the US. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining in. I'm Steve Knotts from Mixitexture. As always, let's take a second to make sure everybody can hear what's happening and make sure I can hear you. My audio should start coming through in a second. There's my phone audio. All right. Turn my phone down. So we're talking about sidechain compression today. Here we go, here we go, here we go. All right, I'm starting the stream. And my other monitor is coming through, so everything is cool. Now I just got to see the chat. There we go. If you're here watching, Scott Stevenson. All right, thank you so much, Scott. You can hear it, you can see it. All right, you should be seeing me on the screen. So yeah, this is me in my little Mixitexture basement studio. I love hanging out down here. I got nice acoustics. I got some Yamaha speakers on the other side of the screen. And we'll get into that someday. I'm going to run through the effects rack for the sidechain compressor and show you basically the macro knobs, how they work, how to drop it on a session, connect the kick drum in so you can sidechain with your bass line, and just show you a little bit about how it works. Mostly because I like playing with it and I like hanging out with people on video. So who else is here? We got another Steve. So we got two Steves and a Scott. Where are you guys coming from? I'm in Pittsburgh. Let me know where you are, just so I'm curious. And I want you to know this is not some webinar BS sales pitch nonsense. I'm actually going to show you the Ableton screen and just do a lesson. We're listening to the tracks right now. That's the bass line we're going to be playing with. So yeah, I know we have a little bit of a time delay, so I got to always wait for the answer when I ask a question. But tell me where you are coming from, and then we can be connected. I'm going to start in just like a minute or two, making sure nobody gets lost on the way in. In fact, I'm going to close Facebook right now. Australia, 2 a.m. All right, man. Good morning. Oh, in Scotland. Hey, Gary, how you doing? Thanks for watching. All right, cool. So I'm in Pittsburgh. I'm in the U.S. and the Netherlands. Wow, you guys are all over the place. This is so cool. All right, so let's go to OBS screen and switch to Ableton. That should take a little second to come through. And give me a quick yes if you can see the screen and hear the track again. I know you can hear the track. If you could type a quick yes when you see the Ableton screen, then I will launch into the lesson, all right? Checking for the yeses. And I'll drink a little coffee while I'm waiting for that. Oh, there we go. Yep, all right, thanks, Steve. Cool, so here we are in an Ableton session. The players are the kick drum, bass line. That's an instrument group I made, and a drum group. Now these are just a basic set of groups that I like to mix with. Normally in a session, I would have these as bus groups, and I would have like another 30 tracks off to the right side, funneling all into these four so I can do live dub mixing with some effects and stuff like that. So what we want to basically accomplish is dropping a new compressor rack on here, and I want to show you how to do that. I'm going to go into full screen. So in your user library, after you download the preset, right? Let's say you got like, here's your normal Ableton library. To find the preset, go to your user library, open presets, audio effects, audio effect rack. If you followed the installation instructions, it should be in here. And how about sidechain bassline, Mixitexture. So I hit return, drops in there. You can see the colors, that's the right one. Now the important thing to do is assign audio from. This is the trigger that's going to make the compressor work. We're doing gain reduction on a bass line to make the bass line a little tiny bit quieter every time the kick drum comes through. And to make that happen, you have to tell the bass line when to get quieter. So you go to the audio from and you assign your kick drum channel to be the input that triggers gain reduction in the bass line. This is the part people can get confused about because you have to know where to drop the compressor. But just think like, we want the kick drum to be louder in the mix. Now, the beginner's kind of mistake is to just grab the kick drum channel and jack it up crazy loud, which works, and that's the intuitive answer. But the better answer is to use a compressor on the bass line that's going to do like automatic volume reduction for us. It's like having a little robot that just turns the bass line down every time the kick drum hits, like magically. It's really cool. And the effect that happens is you feel like the kick drum got louder in the track, even though you didn't turn it up. You're just turning down the bass line. That concept is huge for all of mixing. Everybody talks about, how do I make my mix louder? How do I make my mix louder? Well, one of the big problems is you got to turn your amp up and make the room louder and turn the actual channels in your mix down. That's a little bit of an off-topic advanced thing. Another beginner mistake is people try to turn all their channels up like really loud. And that's not how you make a loud mix. You make a loud mix from the amps and speakers in the room. I'm going to check the comments real quick. You're welcome to type in questions anytime you have a question. I'll flip back over to my chat window. Please ask me if you don't understand, because I want to make sure you get all this. And now I have a sidechain compressor on this session already with everything mapped. So let's run through basically just through the knobs. What you see when you drop it is, number one is a threshold control. That controls how loud, when the compressor starts to act, when the kick drum signal goes across the threshold. Release time is a really fun one. That controls how long the gain reduction happens after it starts. Ratio is mapped to the wrong knob. 1, 1, 1, 2. So the ratio is like after the compression starts, do you want to really squash it down like a limiter, or do you want to do a gentle ratio like you would do for a vocal or something? I want this example to be easy for you to understand, so I'm doing infinity to 1. And then attack time I have preset pretty short, like 3 or 4 milliseconds. You don't want to mess with this on your compression. I mean, for a sidechain compression. You want the bass line to be quiet as soon as the kick drum hits, which means you want the compression to start as soon as the kick drum hits, which means you want a short attack time. So keep that short. If it's too short, you might hear that little click. So that's why I put it around 4 or 5 milliseconds. The filter frequency stuff I'm going to talk about a little bit later, because that relates to, if you see this frequency knob over here, we can use an input filter on the sidechain signal. And then we have some good old output gain. And let me map these the right way. Geez. All right. And then output gain. That just controls the output level of the compressor. So let's see what's happening. I'm going to do only the bass line. So right here we have no gain reduction happening. Check for any questions. Any questions? Scott, question, is it multiband? No, this is not multiband compression. This is a single band where the whole bass line's going through it. It's going to do compression on everything that comes through the signal. You can do multiband sidechain compression, like if you're into mastering or something else. More advanced topics. So to keep it basic, we're doing regular sidechain compression. First, I want you to listen to what happens with no compression when the kick drum and the bass line drop on the same beat, okay? There's a little gap in the loop. And what's happening is sometimes the kick drum hits on a bass beat and they both get louder together. It makes the low end kind of flubbier. It's like pwop, 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 pwop. I made this bass line special so you can hear one bass line note by itself and one bass line note with a kick drum on it. Now listen to what happens as I bring the threshold down and start compressing the bass line. You can hear that out of those first bass line pulses. The bass line has like a double pulse. It goes boom, 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 boom. When I have the sidechain compressor dialed down, that first wub is almost gone. Listen. And now I muted the kick drum so we can only hear the bass line with the compression happening. And hear that difference. It's almost like the first bass pulse is almost gone. It's like whoop, whoop. So you can really hear the hole where the kick drum fits. Type in a yes if you can hear that space in the bass line. The reason I'm asking is because I know YouTube does their own kind of compression on the signal. And if YouTube is compressing the dynamics, you might not really get this. So I'm really exaggerating the example to make sure it's obvious, obvious, obvious. Please type in yes, I can hear the compression. That's important to me. And then I'll keep going here. I'm going to make the release time longer. And you can see now the gain reduction stays down for a long time, and the bass line is like almost gone. So that's an example of too much sidechain compression. We're basically getting rid of the bass line. We don't really want to do that. Let me check for comments. Scott says yes. I think that's for yes, I can hear it. Cool. So the game with sidechain compression is to make the right amount of compression where you hear the bass line and the kick drum together, but you don't feel like the bass line is getting sucked away. So what I'm going to do now is slowly make the release time shorter until it's popping back up in time with the music. This is a rhythmic musical kind of adjustment. You have to feel it kind of. So maybe around 70 milliseconds, the kick drum is knocking out that first bass line bump, and the second one pops right back in. I'm going to mute the kick one more time. And you feel there's a swelling, like woo, 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 like that. And the kick drum fits right in that little hole. That is seriously all you have to do to make amazing, tight, low ends in your mixes. I think that took me like 10 minutes. I did not want this to be a 1 hour long lesson. It should not take you really that long. And when you're in a pro studio session, you would be amazed how fast this stuff flies by. You know, if you're mixing down stuff and people are like, oh yeah, you know, why don't we sidechain this and just like get it working? You got to be able to go, okay, bam, drop the sidechain compressor, dial it down, get the effect working right. Because this is really a technical mix application. What we're doing right now is making the low end tight. So when you play the whole track, the listener is just like, yeah, that kick drum is bumping right through. The bass line is cool. Your audience shouldn't really be able to hear bassline sidechain compression. It should be just like a subconscious thing where the track sounds good. Let me A/B this compressor a little bit. I think I have the X key on there. I'll dial it down to be real extreme again. And let's listen to before and after. I hear the kick drum there. Now I'm going to turn it off. And on. So I hope you can hear that when I turn the sidechain compression off, the effect we get, it feels like the bass line is trying to dominate the kick drum, and you don't really hear that kick drum on the first beat going boof. And then we turn it back on, it brings the kick drum to the front, and it makes it like, yes, okay, the kick drum is the main element in the low end. That's the effect we're going for. That being said, I want to point out there are some styles where you do want the bass line to be the hugest sub-frequency element, and maybe your kick drum might be filtered up to like 100 hertz. In that case, the side chaining could be more subtle, and you want the bass line to have the priority and not be the main kick drum thing. But for house and techno and a lot of like electronic music, the kick drum is the centerpiece, and you want the kick drum to make other stuff be quiet. So that is that. Type in okay if you're with me so far. I'm going to keep going and talk about creative. Wait, what says? Gary says, yeah. Steve says, it's clear. It's clear. Thank you so much. Type in okay, and I'm going to go on to the synthesizer channel and do a little bit of creative sidechain compression. Let's just listen to what our synth is doing, our synth group. So this is a little loop with the, there's a low synth, like a buzz synth, kind of a pad sound, and a little squiggly thing. Can I get those on there too? That's how you map stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So again, when you drop the sidechain compressor rack, you want to assign the kick drum to be the input. We got a couple of okays. Thank you, Gary. Keeping on going here. I don't want to waste your whole, well, it's lunch hour here, but for you all, I guess you're chilling out or having a beer or whatever you're doing. I'm still on coffee because it's daytime, not time for beer yet. You want to make sure you assign your input trigger before you try to use a sidechain compressor, because if you don't do that, it's not going to work. If it's on no input, you're just doing regular compression. So we put the kick drum here, and now let's play this the instrument group. And what are we trying to do here? Well, I want to make those instruments swell, all right? Now here is not swelling. It's a kind of a harsh compression where you almost hear a click at the front. And the level is really dropping. When the kick drum hits, it's like, it takes away the level of the instruments. This is like you hear on some, almost like on Deadmau5 tracks where it's like really, really obvious that the kick drum is cutting a hole in the instrument group. So to make it a little bit more subtle, I'm going to dial back the threshold. And make the release time long enough that it flows with the music to make more of a kind of a pulsing vibe. Longer release time. Maybe even 200. And then if I take the ratio down, it's not going to take such a deep bite out of the compression. There's the loop. And now you can hear there's a swelling feel that gives the synths more like a breathing kind of energy, and they're not just going on a steady drone. I'll turn this off so we can hear the difference. Like this, the sounds are at a constant level. Especially listen to the high frequency part. I hope that's coming through on your end. It's coming through on my end pretty clear. There's off and on. Now let's put the kick drum back in to see what happens. What I'm going for is the feeling of the synths kind of breathing, swelling, pulsing, doing all that cool stuff that gives a track more life. So when they fit in between the rest of the drums, you get a song that's moving along and kind of doing something, not just like somebody holding down their hand on a keyboard forever and not changing at all. Let me know if you're with me. If you like this, put the word synth in the chat comments. Type the word synth if you're still with me on the synth effects. I call this creative sound design work because we're kind of adding some motion and dynamics and expression to the synthesizers. Even making it emotional, like, making people kind of feel like they're getting drawn in and out of the beat. Now let's put the bass line in and see what we got. Check my comments. We got a synth from Steve. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm having a good time. It's only 12:20 too, so just 15 or 20 minutes I can show you a couple of examples of what's happening. On the bass line, we did what I call like a technical type of compression with, I'm gonna have to unmap these because we did a technical kind of compression with a bit of a shorter release time and really making space for the kick drum inside the bass line. And then on the synth channel, we did more of like a creative style of sidechaining. I think I muted my instruments. So the creative kind of thing was like longer release time, more pumping, more swelling, more obvious compression effect. That's where you want the audience to hear it, and you want them to feel like, whoa, I'm in like the ocean with this synth part going up and down. Whereas the technical style, you just want the bass line to get out of the way, shut up for just a second while the kick drum goes through, and then bring it back in. And here's what's happening in the rest of the track. So we've got this drum loop thing, kind of a dirty little drum loop with some snaps. Just like a flatline loop. I don't have any effects on there at all. I just wanted to point that out, that it's fun to separate the kick drum on a different channel so it's easier to mix your input sources. Do you want to hear about the sidechain filter? Do you all have another like 10 minutes or something? Because I can show you the sidechain input filter. While I take a little sip of coffee, put in filter if you want to hear the filter thing. I'll assume you said yes, and what I'm going to show you is, so sometimes you have a giant, massive, huge kick drum that triggers so much sidechain compression it's out of control and you can't get your release time working the way you want. I better do this on the instrument channel. One of the ways to work with that is to make a shorter... Whoa, did you hear that? That was thunder. I hope we don't lose power. One of the ways... Okay, so the problem is sometimes the kick drum has so much bass that it's triggering sidechain compression all the time and you can't get the release time short enough. In other words, you can't get the rhythmic swelling you want from the gain reduction. So the way to fix that is to use an input filter on the sidechain compressor. I'm going to show you what that sounds like. There's this little blue headphone switch that's for solo. So let's listen to the instrument track. Here we hear the instruments. Nothing else in the song is open. Watch what happens when I click this headphone sound. What you have is a way to control the frequency of the kick drum coming in. So if I wanted a real bassy sound to trigger compression and have the compressor only work on when the bass happens, you go down like that. But if I want to get rid of some of that bass, I filter it up. Now watch the gain reduction meter. When we have the frequency up high, where the kick drum is coming through at a high frequency, there's like this much gain reduction. When I turn the frequency down low, there's way more gain reduction. So remember, the problem we're trying to solve is that sometimes your kick drum is so huge it triggers too much gain reduction. The answer is to turn on the sidechain EQ and filter out some of the lows. So you get a better control of the gain reduction. You can dial it in more precisely. If I wanted that to just tick in a little gain reduction and then get off it real quick, that's how you do it. And then the filter, gain, and resonance are two knobs you can use to just slightly tweak how your input sound is working. That's what input filters are all about. My sound is lagging. Oh, it's good. Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure why, but I hope it's working. Last thing I want to say about the sidechain filter is when you hear about de-essing a vocal to get rid of like s, ch, 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 basically what you're doing is just putting an input filter on the vocal itself and having only the high frequencies trigger gain reduction so that it sounds like the person's not doing that sound. It just drops it out real quick. So sidechaining is super fun, and you can put filters on it to control what part of the sound is triggering your sidechain compression. Make sure you switch off the filter because you got to hear the instruments again. And last in the rack is the output gain. I want to show you this on the bassline channel. So let's say we got some nice bassline compression happening. That looks like about what I want to have. But, you know, now that the bass is getting out of the way properly, what if I want it louder in the mix when it comes to mix down? I don't want to undo my sidechain compression because that'll change the relationship of kick drum and bass line. What I want to do is this guy down here. So I put up the volume after the sidechain compression's done. And listen to that second bass bump. Boom, whoa. Boom, whoa. That's one of the ways to get your bass line massive and huge without conflicting with the kick drum. I always like to say you cannot put two cars in the same parking space, you cannot put 2 feet in the same shoe, and you cannot put two big sounds in the low frequency range at the same time. So if you've got a super subby bass line and a giant subby kick drum, you're gonna have problems in your mix down. Sidechaining is one of the ways to solve this problem so you can have a tight low end that really pumps and really drives air coming through the subwoofer to hit people in the body like poof, poof, poof. And you don't have that flubby wubby mess down in the bottom. I do believe that track was not looped. That was a problem. And turn on my global quantizing. Geez, what a sloppy DJ I am right now, right? Cool. Sound is good. So 12:23. I think I want to try to keep this down to half an hour. I want to tell you about the built-in lessons that go with this preset pack. So did you download the preset? I don't know if you're watching this, I don't know if you grabbed the effects rack yet or not. But what I'm going to do is show you the built-in hands-on lessons. This is something that's a paid product on the site that's for sale. If you really want to learn this in depth and in detail and go through it at a deeper level, what I have here is a whole session lesson with a voice guide track and instructions built into the project, where we kind of do like what I've been doing in this live video. I go through and give you instructions right here inside Ableton with these sounds and these effects racks, and you get to play with the sounds and learn by doing it. You might have had a look at the sidechain panel on the side. It says press play to start at the top of the master scene, and play through the session. It goes something like this. Hey, this is Steve Knotts from Mixatecture. Welcome to the sidechain compressor session lesson. That's not me talking to you live right now. That's inside. Now, compressors do... That's inside the session with audio recordings. And you can see I have follow actions that automatically go to the next section when you get through with the last one. So I give you some of the fun part is that I give you the theory and the thought process behind what we're doing. So I explain the actual audio engineering principles that you need to know. And then we do automated examples. So check this one out. Now let's hear this a little bit more clearly. I'm going to mute the kick drum channel and watch the threshold in the bass line again and listen to how it changes. This is all automated inside the session. I'm not doing this live. This is like, I recorded the automation in the session to demonstrate. We still have the kick drum signal ducking the bass line. So the automation kind of shows you what to do the way I did it in a live video, but it's happening in an Ableton project, which is totally cool. These are so much fun. After you do the watch and listen, it goes like this.
Your turn. This time grab the bassline compressor threshold knob and lower it until you see gain reduction on the meter. Your turn. This time grab the bass...
And you go to the activity, and you have a blank clip where you can play with it, fool around with the threshold knob, and learn by doing it yourself. This is why these tutorials are more interesting. When you watch a video tutorial on YouTube, you're just watching it and you can't really touch it. You have to recreate it in Ableton, and then you've got like, you know, your Ableton program open and you're trying to watch YouTube on your phone. Or I don't know if this has happened to you. It's frustrating for me trying to learn from a tutorial while playing on screen in a different program. It doesn't, you know, I never have the same sounds exactly. I don't have the same plugins, and I can't, it's hard to follow, you know, actually I think it is. So doing it inside an Ableton project means you have exactly the same sounds and the same effect racks, the same plugins. These are all stock Ableton plugins, and you can actually learn by doing it right here inside the session with a tutorial guide right there for you. There are some other fun ones. I'll just show you another one here. Select track 3 and do Shift Tab to make sure you're looking at the controls for the instrument group sidechain compressor. There's no bass line in this example, so you can really hear what's happening. Now I'm going to lower the threshold and listen to how it sounds. So I tell you how to find the track, how to find the channel, how to find the effects, what's going to happen, why it matters, and then your turn, do the activity, hear it, play with it, get it by yourself, and we go through all the sections in the effects rack. There's the instrument group, the bassline group, thresholds, before and after listening, sidechain filter section, which took a while, but I hope you understood now. And I try to even be a real teacher and give you a review so you actually learn it. And we get down to the output gain. So that is what's waiting for you in the built-in hands-on lesson. That's a live pack you can download if you're interested. Let me flip back over to my screen and say, hey, so thanks a lot for chilling out. I want to check if you have any questions or anything. If you have a question, type it in right now, and I will have a second to answer it with you before we get off. Put a little background music on. Yeah, that was my super speedy run through of sidechain compression. There I am on camera. Yep. Yeah, super speedy run through of sidechain compression. Do you want to see, should I show you the user area where you can download it and get the lessons and all that? Do you want to see those? Let me know if you do. Check my comments. A couple people here. It's kind of annoying there's a delay on the on the playback. I guess I'm going to do that. I'm going to flip over to screen share again. I want to just show you the user area site so that you can see where it's happening. Oh, I don't know. That's not going to work if I'm in full screen. And if you have a question, type it in because we got a couple minutes where I can hang out with you and show you this stuff. Scott says good. Okay, so this is the users area, and what you're gonna see is sidechain starter kit banner. There is this teaser module where you click in and get the free effects rack. Oh, I logged myself out. So no problem, view teaser content. Scroll down here, there's the sidechain starter kit lesson. Click learn more, and what do we got? Oh, there's the effects rack. Go over here to the view teaser module. Someone said they had a hard time finding it. That's why I wanted to show you this part. I think I might have to actually say click view teaser. I don't know, I don't want you to get lost. But you click view teaser module, and then you go inside. Here's a link to download. The effects rack is tiny. It's a tiny preset, just 5 kilobytes. You download it, and then there's installation instructions, a whole video on how to install presets in your user library, and it shows you actually where you should be able to find it when you get inside live. Then there's another lesson. Sound design tips, things about saving presets, stuff that I was talking about with technical and creative sidechaining. A little blurb about, please don't produce in a vacuum. I want you to share your tracks and let us hear them. That's what I do to negative people in the Facebook group. And then finally, if you're actually interested in grabbing this hands-on lesson, don't get it at the full list price. Get it at the Mixitecture members price. It usually goes for $49, but I have it unlocked down to $25 right now. I know I said this is not a webinar, not a sales pitch. I just want you to know, if you dig the live hands-on thing and you want to grab it, you can do it right now. It's only 25 bucks. Takes about 40 minutes to do the lesson, and I am positive you're going to learn some real audio engineering when you get through it. So that's it. Let me check for any questions. I think we're all cool. Not sure how many people are here and who dropped off, but I want to say thanks a lot for watching this. This is a little lunchtime deal I'm doing. I'm Steve Knotts from Mixitecture. If you have any more questions, you can always email me, steve@mixitecture.com. I'll be happy to talk about with you. And I hope you're a member of the Facebook group too, so you can get in, post your tracks, post some comments, let me know how you're doing on your music production world. And that is what's going on. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'm going to switch it down.